This time we'll call to order the regular city council meeting for September 10th, 2018. Please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Let the roll call show Tim will be here. He's just running a little late tonight. Now we'll move on to the approval of the minutes from August 23rd, 2018. Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead.
Okay, Lisa, on page 3, under question 7, it says needs to be treated with kit gloves. That should be KID, K-I-D. And his management, the word should be philosophy in that first sentence of that paragraph, as opposed to what's in there.
Got it?
And then on page 5 of that set of minutes, under question 15, second paragraph, it says such as charts. The word that was with that is Gantt, capital G-A-N-T-T. And that's also what belongs in the first sentence of the next line where it says GAM. The next paragraph there.
Okay.
Okay. At the bottom of the last paragraph, it got cut short. Basically, what should be in there is that he stated it may take a vote of full council to make that change. It cannot just be one individual on council making these decisions. And I think that's everything I had. Thank you.
Councilmember Kennedy, thank you. Councilmember Friesen, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Lisa, I just have one. It's going to be on page 5. If you go about 3/4 down the page, Councilmember Parisian asked for more substantial to his answer. I think we should change it to substance. I think that's what I said as well.
Councilmember Kurtzwell.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'm not quite sure. It's on page 7. It begins with public comment. Her name is Denise. I thought it was Murray, not Marie.
Oh, is it the
I'm not
27th meeting?
I'm not sure. Which one are we on? I'm on the 27th. Are we not on that one yet?
No, we're not on
23rd.
27.
Oh,
Oh,
okay.
sorry, we're still on the 23rd.
Oh, I thought we were on the
Councilmember
other
Kurtzwell.
one. Okay, then I withdraw that.
I move the minutes as amended.
Second?
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Now we'll move on to the August 27th approval of the minutes. Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
Thank you again, Mr. Mayor. I'm looking at page 7, public comment. The name, we have it down as Denise Marie. I thought it was Murray. I did not check the tape, but just wondered if maybe we could go back and just check that for sure. And it would be there, and it would also be on page 8. Just to check on the correct pronunciation of her last name.
Yeah,
Thank you.
Pretty clear.
It was Marie.
Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead.
Okay, on page 3, Lisa, under old business, second paragraph that begins, Councilmember Parisian. About quarter of the way down, it said, he further stated the word should be there, not they. And the line just below that, the word should be alluded, not eluded.
I'm sorry, I couldn't hear you.
Okay.
I just missed the
Alluded with
last
an
one.
A, not an E.
Okay.
Yeah. He wasn't running away from them.
And that's all I had.
All right, I can move the minutes as amended.
I got some.
Oh, go ahead.
Councilmember Richards, go ahead.
Back on page 7, where we visited earlier, I was quoted in the third paragraph down. It wasn't exactly what I said, but it's fine with me the way it is and let it go. But I got to apologize to council and the rest of the public I tried to put too much stuff in my comments, okay? And I didn't cover my topics exactly the way I should have done so for accuracy. And that's why it reads in a somewhat confuddled way, okay? But hopefully as we move on, I can make it clearer when these subjects come up again without any great distraction. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilmember Richards. Anyone else? Okay, we have a motion on the table.
Support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. On to the approval of the bills.
I'll move the bills.
I'll support.
All in favor? Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
Thank you. By the bills, this is all part of the material that goes with the bills. It's the check register for City of South Lyon. I'm looking on page 4/4. It's just a question. The vendor name is showing South Lyon VFW Post 1224 with a tax disbursement of $340,149.64. That seemed a little odd to me, and so I'm just questioning that because that appears to be the same number that is used down below for the vendor South Lyon Community Schools, a tax disbursement. So I don't know if, what that VFW post is. So I know Lori watches the city council, so if she could just send me an email. I didn't have time to call her today,
Yeah.
but
Does anyone have anything else for the bills? We have a motion and a second. All in favor on moving the bills?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes. On to the attorney bills.
I'll move the bills.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. On to the approval of tonight's agenda.
No changes or deletions, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, thank you, Chief.
I'll move the agenda.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. At this time, we'll open up for public comment. Please state your name and address. Okay, we will close public comment. Oh, I'm sorry. I apologize. I did not need to speed through that. Oh, yep.
My name is Margaret Benitis, and I'm a resident of Colonial Acres. And I understand at the last meeting, the Board of Directors stated that Colonial Acres was on board for the Thomasville development. Now, I don't think they were speaking for the residents at all. I think the residents are just kind of resigned to the fact we're not really, no one that I've talked to is in favor of it. So I just wanted that to be on the record.
Absolutely.
Okay.
Thank you. At this time, we'll close public comment and welcome in Bob Donahue for discussion about the downtown.
All right, I think I'll be fairly brief. The plans are moving forward for right after Pumpkin Fest. Really, we're going to have a little different look downtown. I mentioned it last time, but we have the orange lights that we're going to add to all the corn stalks this year. And we're going to get those up by the end of the first week, so get it up a week earlier. Also, we've ordered the lights for the trees. All the trees at the midpoint in November will switch out from the corn stalks to the holiday lighting. We're going to, and I just want the public to know, we're still going to have the street lights with the garland and the white lights. But we're adding the lights in the trees. We went through and we counted up how many strings. And so the DPW will be putting the white lights in the trees. DDA volunteers will be wrapping the trunks of the trees in red lights. And then, of course, remember back when our Planning Commission approved Heinen Engineering putting up a, believe it or not, 35-plus to 50-foot holiday tree in front of Heinen Engineering. So Jeff Heinen has had conversations with Lloyd and certainly with Cool Yule, and we're meeting with the Cool Yule and the DDA to make sure that we keep the parade flowing and that we don't take away any thunder from the Historical Society. And so we're working out all those details. We'll come back. But the holidays downtown should be quite memorable. Be quite a year. Be interesting. Our men's night out, Brotoberfest, is moving forward. Just tonight, earlier, Kiwanis approved their role as one of the food vendors. So things are moving fast. Publicity will be up by the first of next week. The billboard goes up early in October with the men's night out. And then that billboard switches out to ladies' night right after men's night, which is on October 20th. Then on October 22nd, they switch that billboard out to ladies' night out. So we expect a lot of people. The last thing is that when you're downtown, you'll notice that today the Veterans and Farmers Market parking lots received their first seal coat. They're going to come back and put a second seal coat on tomorrow morning and stripe it. So by 5 o'clock tomorrow, I think we'll have some very respectable, good-looking parking lots. And then the Well Street will be done next spring, Well Street parking lot. So we're looking in good shape. And I think that just shows how we really, trying to put our best foot forward. That's all I have.
Thank you, Bob.
Councilmember Walton, go ahead.
Quick question in regards to parking lots. You actually read my mind because that was one of my comments and questions for later. The parking lot at the corner of Dorothy and McMahon.
Yes, that right now we're waiting on a drawing that looks at the possibility, because as we are selling the master plan hard, and we have a lot of interest in the Veterans parking lot. In fact, those plans could be coming forward soon. And then we'd like to see a build out of the current farmers market parking lot. So what we're trying to do is look at future parking downtown. And so before we rush to sell that lot, we're saying let's look at what it could be if it was landscaped properly with mature trees around it, and possibly designed to also be a future home for the farmers market.
You're thinking of 390. She's speaking of the one in the park.
Yeah.
Oh, I'm sorry. I was thinking the one at McMunn. I'm so sorry. I was thinking of McMunn and Lafayette. Dorothy Street.
McCaddy and Lafayette is where you're talking about. The one next to the water plant.
It was the original
Oh,
ice
my
rink.
goodness. Okay, sorry. I got to get myself. Okay. That lot is not in the DDA, but that's a good point. That's a good overflow lot.
It's in desperate need.
It needs
It's been in-
attention.
it's
I
been
know
there.
that I had conversations with Ron Brock and, of course, our new city manager, but that's going to be a capital improvements plan item. But, yeah, that definitely needs some work. It's in rough shape.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
We got a little bonus parking.
It's good to know that one's getting looked at too. So all of them are being looked at.
Yes, yes.
Good.
Councilmember Parisian, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Bob, I have a quick question for you. So I understand, it's my understanding that we have a few people who have applied to be on the DDA.
Correct.
And I know the process isn't entirely clear online, so it's a little bit vague. Do you happen to know if the DDA bylaws are available on the city's website?
I think that's a good question. I don't know, but I will look into it. They
Thank
should
you.
be.
Thank you.
Because the DDA bylaws show that the DDA board has its own basically informal approval process, and they recommend to the city manager, and then the city manager makes the appointment and recommends the approval. It's a little awkward, but it's right there in the DDA bylaws. We followed that. Not only the DDA bylaws spell it out, but there would have been more information available as to the exact status of the DDA board. On July the DDA board discussed its last board seat. Those minutes are not yet on the website because the August meeting, they didn't have a quorum.
Okay.
So that's why the July minutes did not appear on the website yet.
No, that's okay. I'm not
Okay.
I'm not too concerned about the minutes.
Okay.
I'm more concerned about the bylaws, because the bylaws are going to set forth the procedure for people to apply if they're interested in being on the DDA.
Right.
And it's not available online, or maybe it wasn't passed by council, whatever it might be. I just think we need to have all our ducks in a row, just in case someone is interested. They know exactly what to do in order to be eligible.
I agree totally.
Because as it's currently written, there is the form that people can fill out to be on any board or commission, including the DDA.
Yes.
And that just says to submit it to the clerk, but there isn't anything that's more substantive that says, oh, by the way, if you're looking for this particular board, you need to do X, Y, and Z. So just to cover, to make sure that anybody who wants to sign up to be on a board understands fully, can we just double check to see that the bylaws have been passed and that they are available to the public?
And we could also add, because it is somewhat different than the other boards and commissions, we could also add a note or a section
On the form?
on the DDA.
I think that would be incredibly beneficial, because just looking at it as it is, it's incredibly confusing.
Yeah.
With that being said, though, I think just a quick update would be helpful. Yeah, so if you guys can shoot us an email, let us know, that'd be great.
Okay.
Okay.
I'll say something.
Can I ask just a little backup on that? Aren't those applications, if somebody does check the DDA box, forwarded to you or whoever?
I believe so.
Is the chair?
Yeah,
Okay.
in the past, Lisa has always been good about that.
Okay. I just wanted to confirm that that's what my understanding was, so.
Yep.
Do they get time-stamped? What's the procedure?
I don't know. Lisa, what's the procedure when?
We don't normally necessarily date stamp them because we don't get that many of them. We can start doing that, but usually what happens is when they come in, I'll give Bob a copy if it's for DDA, otherwise everything goes to the city manager.
I think for best practices purposes, I'm familiar with Oakland County and Detroit. Anytime something goes to the clerk's office, it's immediately time-stamped. And we might want to start
We can do that.
applying that, just in case there's ever a discrepancy or something is lost. We
Yeah.
have that ability to say, hey, it's been time-stamped this day, this time.
Yes, we can do that.
Thank you.
Councilmember Richards, go ahead.
Yeah, it's my understanding that business owners, proprietors, and the building owners are automatically eligible, okay, for membership in the DDA, not necessarily the board, okay? But they are automatic members of the DDA and do not need to apply, okay? Other people that wish to apply, that are actively involved in downtown matters, okay, are encouraged to follow the path that Ms. Parisian is talking about.
Are you speaking of all of the, within the DDA?
In the
District
DDA
boundary.
area, yeah, in the area.
All properties within the DDA district boundary, the owners certainly know that they are in that district boundary, and they are all definitely part of the DDA district.
There's a lot
Now,
of them.
all property owners, according to the DDA law, Public Act 197 of 1975, as amended, all property owners are eligible for the board, as are business owners, anyone with primary interest in a business,
Oh,
or
I didn't-
even
I don't-
business managers are allowed.
Okay, I didn't know they were on the board.
They
I thought
can
they had
be.
to be elected to the board.
Yeah, the majority of the board should, the law reads, the majority of the board shall be of people of primary interest in the businesses within. So out of our 9 members, at least five should be business or property owners. The remainder can be filled with, if someone's available to take a DDA resident, there should be a DDA resident on board. The rest of those positions can either be more downtown property owners. It's always important, I believe, though not required, that we should have at least a city resident. And then one of those spaces of the 9 by law is the chief elected official or their appointee, which is generally the city manager in most communities.
Yeah,
So that's how we get to 9.
okay, fine.
Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
Bob, I just want to let you know that I was out all last week, all weekend. And the biggest improvement that people feel that has happened in the downtown since you've come on board, I know it's going to sound a little crazy, but are the corn stalks. People love those corn stalks. They really do. It is like the beginning of fall, the pumpkins, the mums, the cider mills, and when they see those corn stalks coming up, it just really makes the downtown look fabulous when they're decorated, particularly last year when you added the ribbons that went with it. So I just wanted to let you know that the hard work that the DDA is doing to improve the downtown is clearly being noticed, and people are actually looking forward to seeing the downtown seasonally change. So I think that's a good, positive thing. So I wanted to,
Thank you.
in fact, a couple of people asked me to pass along to you tonight, so.
Thank you.
So congratulations.
Thank you. One last item is that we're recycling. We're working with the Pumpkin Fest Committee. We're going to get our, all of their stocks, which means we will then get the rest that we need for all the poles from one of our farmers market vendors. And then we're also taking most of the pumpkins from Pumpkin Fest, and those will be with the stocks. So we're really picking up our game. So, sorry.
I love it.
Thank you very much.
Bob. All right, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, at this time, we're going to move on to old business.
Mr. Mayor,
Yes.
if I could, a recommendation, the city attorney's arrival is anticipated momentarily, but his input is critical for both old business items. I would recommend bypassing old business and moving to new business until such time as the city attorney arrives.
I think that's wise. Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
I'd like to move to table the, making a motion to table is different from a motion to postpone. I would like to move to table the old business on the agenda until further notice.
I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Thank you, Chief. So at this time, we will jump to new business. Adoption of Oakland County Hazard Mitigation Plan. The recommendation is to pass this resolution.
Mr. Mayor, if I could speak to that?
Yes.
This is somewhat of a housekeeping item. Approximately every 5 years, under the emergency management domain, the county has to pass a new county hazard mitigation plan. And in order to qualify for pre-disaster and post-disaster fundings, all of the local municipalities have to adopt the Oakland County plan. So this is somewhat of a formality, and as the emergency management liaison person, I'm recommending that council pass the resolution.
Thank you.
Question.
Councilmember Richards, go ahead.
Mr. Collins, does the city of South Lyon have to pay in to belong to this board, okay, for these, to be granted on this hazardous waste mitigation plan? Do we have to pay in anything to?
Well, to clarify, it's not hazardous waste, it's it's the hazard mitigation plan. It could apply to hazardous waste, but it's much broader than that. It could be something as simple as, and this is one of the items in the county hazard mitigation plan. What do we do in case of a tornado? What do we do in case of a train derailment? It's things of that nature. And to answer your question directly, no, there's no cost involved to us. It simply makes the municipality eligible for federal funding in case of a disaster.
Oh, I see, okay. That's all.
Councilmember Walton.
I'd like to make the motion to pass the resolution adopting the Oakland County Hazard Mitigation Plan.
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you, Chief, for that inside information. New business number 2, first reading of lot coverage zoning ordinance amendment.
Mr. Mayor,
Chief Collins, go ahead.
Kelly McIntyre from CIB Planning is here and prepared to address this topic.
Great. Thanks for being here, Kelly.
Oh, you're welcome. Thank you. Just to give you a little bit of background, lot coverage has been a concern of the city in the residential areas for quite some time now. And In the planning field, when you see a lot of the same requests coming to the Zoning Board of Appeals consistently, that means it's time to look at your ordinance. Something isn't working right. We've consistently seen ZBA requests for lot coverage for pools, decks, patios, a significant increase over the past 2 years. So we've looked at the ordinance. We had a public hearing on the 9th of August, and after quite a bit of discussion with the Planning Commission, the Planning Commission felt that keeping the lot coverage at 25% for the buildings on the site was adequate. So that would be the house and an accessory building, a shed or a detached garage or something of that sort. What they felt that they could add that would help with some of this issue is a 10% additional lot coverage for impervious surfaces. Now that would be a pool, an enclosed deck, an unenclosed deck, patios, and will in fact cover the concrete, so your driveway and your walkways. So you can go up to 35% with impervious surface coverage. You may not exceed the 25% for building coverage. That's not proposed to be increased. So the proposal you have before you is to increase the impervious surface coverage, to add that to the schedule of regulations. And there's an accompanying definition that was also added so that it's explained very clearly. There's a history of not applying this standard the same way throughout the city over the number of years. And so it's very important that we get it written down, explained very specifically of what it contains and what it does not contain, or what's included. So,
I agree. Thank you for that explanation. Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead.
Kelly, I appreciate you coming to the meeting tonight to discuss this. You and I have already talked about this today.
thank you.
You know that I talked to Patrick about this.
Yes.
I believe that there's some vagueness in what's prepared right now. I think it could be misinterpreted. Patrick agreed. I think we need to clear up some of the things. I'm glad that you stressed that the 25% is the maximum allowable for building coverage. Okay? The chart that's on the second page that's been prepared that shows here's the max percent of lot covered by impervious surfaces. If I read that the way it's listed right now, it says 35%. That actually, if I'm going to take it literally, should only be 10. It's 10% for that classification, plus the 25 for the house to give you 35.
Correct, yes.
Not the way it's written right here.
You're absolutely correct.
Because this could be taken as 60% for the
No,
whole
it's
yard.
max percentage of lot coverage by buildings and impervious surfaces,
that's right,
which
and
should
that
be,
needs to be
absolutely.
clarified,
Yes,
yep.
absolutely, thank you, yeah.
The other thing that Patrick and I talked about is on page 2, where we talk about artificial structures. I'm not a zoning administrator, so I'm not real sure what an artificial structure is. I went to the definitions that are contained in our ordinance 102.3. They don't tell you what an artificial structure is, too. So they do tell you what buildings are and what constitutes a building. My suggestion with Patrick was, we're going to call it artificial structure. Let's give the EG and talk about what some of the examples are for this. Okay, pathways, driveways, sidewalks, whatever they are.
Sure, we
So
can
there's
do
no misinterpretation of what this is intended to cover.
That's fair,
And
we can
that's,
certainly do that.
that's the bulk of what I had
Okay.
in my discussions with Patrick. So, myself personally, I'd be inclined to approve the first reading with the caveat that the clarifications be addressed as I've talked about here.
Sure, absolutely, thank you.
I got something.
Councilmember Richards, go ahead.
Chris, Maggie
It's
also.
okay, we'll go to her next. Yep.
Okay, Kelly,
Yes,
I read through this and I'm confused about something.
okay,
In this central major core area of town here, we have homes that have, they're 100 years old, okay? And there's some of them got bigger lots, okay? They're certainly a long ways from 25% footprint on the lot. So if nobody enters into a major remodeling of the house and garage, driveway, and the rest of the property, they would still be within the footprint of what you're looking for, but below this 35, okay, for accessories, okay? And I'm not talking about a dollhouse or an outdoor and along the fence line or anything. I'm just talking about the vital stuff connected with the house, like the patio and the driveway and the, oh, what do you call it, the breezeway, okay? Now, clarify me if I'm wrong, okay, in older houses, are they grandfathered in to have room for expansion?
No, in fact, they're not grandfathered in. They are what we would call an existing non-conforming site. So it exists, it predates the current ordinance that's applicable. If they would like to make an expansion to the home, then they would have to come for a variance. There are homes with small lots in the downtown with large homes, and they exceed the 35%. That's just what it is.
Yeah.
The zoning bulk of regulations have evolved, it hasn't always matched up with what is existing in the downtown. And that's pretty typical in downtowns where, they're more compact. This really, while it applies to the downtown, it's most applicable to your subdivisions on the outskirts. Larger lot.
Oh.
Yeah, so mostly for subdivisions. Although it does apply, like I said, to the downtown, but
Okay.
Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
So, this is the question I had. If I were to tear down a house in the downtown and rebuild, would this ordinance apply?
yes,
Okay, so if I do a tear down, the ordinance will apply.
yes.
But if all I'm doing is a renovation, it does not apply.
No, if you want to do a renovation with no increase in size,
I'll say I'm going to increase in size.
it does apply if you're increasing the size.
Okay.
It does apply. If you want to do anything, if it currently, if you're going to touch that, if you want to expand, you want to tear it down, do any construction, this will apply.
So
If you leave it as is, tear downs.
Tear downs will get the benefit of the extra 10% in the lot coverage without having to go through the
Yes, absolutely.
aggravation of
Absolutely.
of doing a variance.
Yes, absolutely.
And I also had the same comment that it was a little bit misleading on the numbers
Sure.
with respect to that. Additionally, with respect to any other artificial structure, me personally, ambiguity doesn't bother me in an ordinance because I think what it does is it provides you with a little bit of flexibility.
That's-
Because if you become too defined in your ordinance, then what happens is every 3 years, when there's a new product or a new thing that's out there, you're always amending your ordinance to accommodate for whatever is the latest trend. So even though some people think that there's a problem with ambiguity when you're dealing with ordinance language, actually ambiguity is deliberately inserted in ordinance drafting so that you don't sometimes get caught backed up into a corner.
You're absolutely correct.
So-
You're right. And so that we do
my
in
only
zoning
comment on
ordinances.
that.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
And that is true. We do like to provide a little bit of ambiguity so that we can, like you said, something new comes along, and if it's not specifically written here, then we would like to be able to include it or exclude it.
Councilmember Kivel, go ahead.
I don't disagree with that, but I think what Steve had suggested was using examples, just using common man language so that people understand exactly what's being spoken to, not trying to list product by product of what is in and what is out. So-
Absolutely. We will show them as examples, not completely inclusive,
Precisely.
but
And further, the idea of doing an amendment to an existing property, a lot of times, especially in these historic environments, you have variances can be simplified if you can demonstrate a hardship that, that is justifiable. You can get relief from, what your lot coverage or a whole host of limitations that are more typically associated with newer projects, so.
you're absolutely
And
correct.
I'm glad that you brought up the idea, because we're having the idea of the commonality of this isn't solely, the historic area or anything. This is comprehensive across all of our new developments. As people's lifestyles change and things, you have amendments that become more common into everybody's backyard. And so trying to make room to adjust to that,
Yeah.
becomes an issue throughout the course. A lot of this stuff, we've had this conversation a number of times, but a lot of it started to really be more profoundly recognized when Singh came in, sued the city to be able to get everything they couldn't get by muscling planning. And it was unfortunate that, I have to admit, I'd like to identify the fact that when we go to these PDs, we haven't been nearly as careful as we should have been in not recognizing and projecting where some of these misgivings would be. And having this impervious surfaces amendment to that is really going to help us to accomplish some of the things that we've lost by allowing too small of lots with too big of houses to be built. And, we'll talk about that more later on with the Thomasville project. So we have to make sure, and unfortunately, we're just about at build-out, so a lot of that stuff is no longer going to be quite the hazard that we've taken on so far. But and the only reason I bring that up is because I'm not trying to assign blame to planning or planning commission. It's just one of those things that if you don't think through the entire package, you inadvertently are likely to get some kind of unintended consequence, and so that's where we're at now. Thank you.
Councilmember Richards, go ahead.
Kelly, this ordinance, which we'll probably pass, okay, will be posted in the paper, okay, and I suppose online and email and all that, okay? So average homeowner out there, he says, gee whiz, this must mean me, it affects everybody. Okay, so they're going to look at it and say, I wonder if I'm conforming, okay? And do I have to challenge this to keep from being a citation, okay, or something? What do you expect challenges to this new upgrade in lot coverage designation? Or do you feel it will go smoothly?
I think it should go smoothly. Generally, the only way we know something is happening is if someone pulls a building permit or we actually see them during construction. So if something is already constructed and it's there, we consider that existing. And whether it's conforming or not, it's there. You may keep it. You're not going to remove it. Only new construction, things going forward from the time that this ordinance takes effect forward. So if it's existing today, it's okay.
Okay, then that's grandfathered in.
Correct.
The patio that was there 20 years ago
Yes.
could stay there. They don't have to knock it out and...
Correct. If they'd like to expand it, then we certainly have to look at it. But if it's just going to stay there, and it's fine.
Okay, all right.
Councilmember Walton, did you have something?
Yeah, I'd like to make the motion.
Okay.
I would like to make the motion to approve the first reading of the ordinance to amend the City of South Lyon Code of Ordinances, Chapter 102, zoning, Article 7, Supplementary District Regulations, Division 2, Height, Bulk, Density, and Area Limitations by amending Section 102-456, or is that Section 102 through 456, scheduling, limiting height, bulk, density, and area by zoning district by adding a maximum % of lot area covered by impervious surfaces for residential districts, and by adding subsection 102 through 457, defining impervious surfaces as presented.
Second.
I'd like to make another comment as well.
Okay. Okay. Did we get a second there?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. Quickly, discussion to Councilmember Kivel.
I was hoping that we could, I don't know how quickly this needs to be turned around, but I would like to actually have the new city manager weigh in on this, as well as I wouldn't mind having planning have another crack at validating that 10%, we're calling it 10%, but if you have a building envelope that is less than 25%, I mean, can you use that for impervious surfaces
Yes, you may.
activities? Okay, and that's where my concern lies, because down the road, okay, they decide they want to put a shed out back. Is that charged against the general 35%, or is that specific to the building? And the only reason I'm asking is because somebody might want to make an amendment to their entire package, take something out so they get more room for some other activity. So I'd like that all figured out before we end up making an approval of something. So that's why I was hoping both the city manager, I'd love him to be able to weigh in on this, just, hopefully he's got more experience and long-term understandings from former communities that he's been at that could be reflected in ours, as well as the idea of planning having another discussion, at least with a more defined understanding of what we're looking for to solve this problem. I mean, they did recognize the fact that the building envelope shouldn't exceed 25%, and I'm grateful for that, because that goes a long ways towards the solve. I guess my biggest concern is the 35% mark going to be satisfactory? We have a matrix that has a number of neighboring communities and what their rates are. I don't know that planning had that information when they made the calculus of deciding 35% was the right number. So I was wondering if that might not be in our best interest to have them take one more shot to refine that number.
Sure.
With a recommendation. So.
They did have that information of neighboring communities, they did.
They did?
Yes.
Okay.
And we have a planning commission meeting this Thursday evening that certainly we could see about adding it to the agenda as for discussion.
I think that would be valuable to me at least,
Okay.
so, yeah.
Absolutely.
Thank you.
Councilmember Kennedy, go ahead.
I want to make sure that the motion is to amend the ordinance based on the discussion that we had today and the comments that have been made. And that includes, it's more than just giving examples in that one section.
Correct.
It's adding to the definitions that are used for the ordinances, what is an artificial structure, okay? Not looking to clearly enumerate everything that falls in that category,
Okay.
but looking for a description of, just like we have what a building constitutes, what constitutes a building, rather, what constitutes an artificial structure. And explicitly stating that the footprint for the house cannot exceed 25% lot coverage.
Okay. Yes, we will see about doing
Great.
a much
Thank you
better
very
job
much.
making that clear. I understand what your intentions are.
Thank you, Kelly.
Appreciate it.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes. Thank you for being here.
Thank you.
Move on to new business number 3, city manager employment agreement.
Mr. Mayor,
Chief Towns?
started off, I do know that the city attorney negotiated this agreement with council input with the new city manager. Unfortunately, the city attorney's not here to specifically address the items, but in discussions with him, it appeared that Mr. Zelnak was certainly on board with what was in here. City attorney was on board with what was here, and it did have council input. And for what it's worth, my recommendation is to approve as quickly as possible and get the new manager here as fast as we can.
I would agree.
Thank you,
I
Chief.
agree, yeah.
Did anyone have anything that they'd like to discuss about
Everything
this?
was reflected in there that we had talked about, so.
Yes.
Councilmember Kurtzwell, go ahead.
I move to approve the city manager employment agreement between Paul Zelnick and the city of South Lyon as presented, and authorize the mayor and clerk to sign the agreement, subject to receipt of acceptable results of pre-employment screening for medical examination, drug testing, and fingerprinting, and an agreed-upon starting date.
A second.
All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? Motion passes.
Mr. Mayor?
Chief Collins?
Just a quick addendum that Councilmember Kurzweil mentioned. We do have the fingerprint results back, and he did come back clear.
Okay, thank you.
Can I ask a question of the chief?
Councilmember Richards, go ahead.
Chief, in approving the format of this contract, if any details should arise, okay, that we want to go over again or expand on a little bit, do we have to go into closed session for everything subsequently for any of this whole process with this contract? Or can we do it in open session?
If council approves the contract, it's a done deal.
I see, but just some if changes come along here, We got a question about this part or that part. If something happens, do we have to go into closed session to?
Well, the city attorney is here, and I would think you would have an option, but
Okay,
I would
thought-
recommend letting the city attorney address that
Okay,
issue.
I just thought he would. Okay, go ahead, fine, whatever.
Repeat the question?
We passed the motion, okay, and we passed but I just wanted to raise a question subsequently, okay? If minor changes and alterations are requested by either party in our contract with our new manager, more so than vacation days or something of that nature, do we have to go into closed session for every detail of the whole process with this? Or can we just work it out administratively or just do it in open court or open council session?
You don't have, you would have to approve any kind of change that requires council approval would have to be done in an open meeting. If there were a legal issue, I could provide you with advice, legal advice in a written format, which would allow you to go into closed session to discuss those issues. But generally speaking, without knowing what the issue is, it's,
I'm just,
you could go into closed session, but you are not required to go into closed session.
okay, I just brought that up because we've had so much of that.
Any action would have to be taken in open meeting.
Right, any decision would be in a public forum, so.
Okay, fine.
Anyone else with discussion on that? Okay. Now that Attorney Wilhelm is here, we will bounce back to old business. Number 1, corrections relating to Council Motion 8-5-18 regarding Thomasville during the 8/13/18 meeting. Tim, would you mind just briefing us so everyone's kind of gets a grasp of why we're going through this?
Yes.
Thank you.
This is an odd one, so everybody needs to pay attention. On August 13th, there was a proposed first reading on the Thomasville PD at the council level, so that would have been step 2 of the 4-step process. If you review the video, there's a discussion about postponing based on the need for additional information at the council level. The discussion is about whether to table 1 meeting, 2 meetings, how quickly the applicant can get the information, have it analyzed, and come back to council. And then Councilmember Parisian visibly picks up the packet, which contains a recommended motion, and rather than making a motion to postpone, reads the motion for a first reading out of the packet. By mistake, is my understanding, because the discussion around it all involves a postponement, 1 or 2 meetings. So nobody caught it at the time, nobody caught it at the next meeting, it was brought to my attention. I think it was a mistake. If it's a mistake, we are far enough out that a reconsideration is not appropriate. The appropriate motion is to rescind it, and that would be to accurately convey the intent of council, which was to postpone it, and that's in fact at the next meeting of August 27th. I was under the impression that it had been postponed. I believe this council was under the impression it was postponed, and I believe the applicant was under the impression that it had been postponed. So it was treated that way, but the motion itself was made and approved, and that should be accurately reflected in the minutes of August 13th. And then you would go back in time to where we sit today and say, we didn't mean to do that. And you would rescind that original motion and adjust the minutes that were correcting it as you thought it should have been corrected, which were actually wrong. So that's why I say it's confusing, but ultimately the goal here is to rescind any first reading of Thomasville PD that had been mistakenly made on August 13th.
Thank you. That was a great cliff note on the situation. Now, I'm going to open it up for discussion, but notice that there is 4 steps of motions that we need to go through here on this, so let's make sure we get this right this time, right? Does anyone have anything to say about it?
Only that, Mr. Cavallari had also referenced to get the first reading through, you know, so, I mean, after those initial 2 meetings, he was still looking for that
Correct.
approved first reading, so
Great
it
point.
wasn't a misunderstanding that he thought it had already taken place, so, I mean, that's further evidence that we didn't.
Councilmember Parisian, go ahead.
Well, if there's no further discussion, or is there further
I
discussion?
don't believe so.
No? Okay, so to right the wrong, can I make the motion to rescind the first reading made on August 13th? To approve the Thomasville, is it PD?
First reading.
It should be the top one there.
Motion to rescind Council Motion 8-5-2018, approving a first reading of the Thomasville PD rezoning, which occurred on August 13th, 2018.
I'll support.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Thanks, guys. Okay. Step 2.
No, go to the second one.
Councilmember Parisian, go ahead.
I'll make the motion to reconsider the council motion to approve the 8/13/2018 minutes as revised as to Council Motion 8/5/18.
August 13th?
August 5, 2018 is what I have.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed? Motion passes.
Wait, you look confused. Is that accurate?
I thought I heard August 15th.
Motion to reconsider the council motion to approve the August 13th, 2018 minutes as revised as to Council Motion August 5th, 2018. That's accurate?
So this is to undo the correction because you've rescinded the motion. And it was a motion made and approved. And your August 13 minutes should accurately reflect what actually occurred. And then you're gonna go back and, because you've rescinded, we're gonna hopefully direct the clerk to make notations that make this clear when anybody picks up those minutes.
I think that's step 3. That's step 3.
Yes.
Okay.
Councilmember Parisian, go ahead.
Well, wait a second, did we approve that?
Well, yeah, you're
The second one?
You're on 3. I thought there was a motion made. Is there a second?
We're still on 2, I think.
I seconded.
Yep.
Okay.
Was it approved?
All in favor?
Aye.
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 All opposed?
Okay.
Motion passes. So now we're on step 3.
Now you're on 4, right?
No, now we're on 3.
Or am I confused again?
That's why you looked puzzled. And we were on step 2.
All right. So
And
now
that
that
passed.
You had brought up your
You need to
inquisitive,
vote. That's right.
your
You need to vote
inquisitive
on-
face, so, yeah.
Yeah, I'm sorry.
That's okay.
No, that's okay. That's why, just to make sure it's correct.
Right, so you have reconsidered and altered your minutes for August 13. The next step would be to, a motion to approve the minutes of August 13th, 2018, without any revisions.
That's step 3, yeah.
With respect to Council Motion 8518, addressing the first reading of Thomasville.
I will make the motion to approve the minutes of August 13th, 2018, without any revisions to Council Motion 8518.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
Step 4.
Yes.
I will make the motion to direct the clerk to include notes in the August 13th, 2018 and August 27th, 2018 minutes stating that Council Motion 8518 to approve the first reading of the Thomasville PD rezoning was rescinded on September 10th, 2018.
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
I do have one question.
Motion passes. Go ahead for discussion, Glenn.
Shouldn't there be a reflection in the 8-5 meeting having a postponement of this topic?
Yes, you can, I gave some thought to that. I'm not sure how you go back in time and do that, but it was handled that way. So I wasn't gonna add another motion in there, but that's certainly something council can do.
Well, it just seems like that would give better clarity of the consequences of the mistaken understanding that took place on the 5th.
you want to make a separate motion to have the minutes.
If it's not necessary, I don't want to muddy things up, but I just,
No,
it
I do
seems
see your
as,
point. I gave thought to it. I just didn't go there because
Yeah,
it
it seems like
was
we should-
complex enough as it was.
that was an overt move that just was misworded, so,
It's up to you as a council if you want
You
to
have any
take that
problem with
extra
that?
step.
I'm good with whatever.
yeah.
I just want to say, Attorney Wilhelm, thank you for catching it. I appreciate how sharp you
I
are.
didn't catch it. I'm just laying out that it needs to be corrected and,
Thank you.
Well, you reacted to it properly,
did,
so
you did.
that's all we really need.
Thanks.
Does anybody have any heartburn about us making a motion to reflect the postponement on the the August 5th meeting? No, okay. I make a motion that the minutes of the 8/5/18 meeting reflect,
just, it's the August 13th meeting, council motion 8/5/18. So they are numerical numbered. Council motions are abbreviated CM, and that was the fifth motion, I believe, for that night.
oh, is that right?
So
Okay.
don't be confused by the.
No, I was. I tripped on that one. I should have seen the hyphens instead of,
Right, so the hyphen indicator is a council motion reference, and the dates are slash.
I swear we know what we're doing.
yeah. You know what? I'm going to rescind my motion. Let's just leave it alone. Everybody understands where we're at right now, so.
Thank you, Attorney Wilhelm, for your assistance in the
I apologize for the
multi-step
confusion.
process there.
Rough.
Apologize. Thank you.
Okay, now with that cleared up, we'll move back to old business number 2 in regards to the first reading of ordinance rezoning parcel 21-19-126-002 Thomasville from RM-1 multiple family residential to PD planned development.
Mr. Mayor?
Attorney Wilhelm?
I can update the council briefly. I spoke with Lorenzo Cavalier this evening, more than once. What I proposed to him is, I received information that there was still some concern over the several issues relating to this development, in particular, the lot coverage calculations. And what I proposed is, rather than have him appear tonight and engage in a discussion as occurred in the last meeting where it was back and forth and nobody was really in agreement and not necessarily on the same page, that we postpone this matter. I recommend 2 meetings. Mr. Cavalier requested 1 meeting. I think we want to go at least 2 meetings to allow us as a staff to, and I propose this. Let's postpone it tonight. We'll meet, have staff and the applicant meet, go through the issues. I will work with council directly to make sure I understand what your concerns are, convey that to Mr. Cavalier, and see if we can figure out how to bring this forward in a way that, we can take action on it one way or the other. And he accepted that, and I'll be working with Kelly Carmen and Chief to set up a meeting for later this week and go through these issues and see if we can all get on the same page and get it ready to come back for council.
Well, I just speak for myself up here, but I appreciate you getting out in front of it because it felt like we were going to be spinning our tires here again tonight with some of the developments that came up in the packet. So, does anyone else have anything for discussion on this matter?
Yeah, I got some.
Go ahead, Councilmember Kivel.
I was just hoping that, are we going to have a conversation with you, and that would be relayed into the meeting that you'll have? Okay.
I encourage you and ask you all to contact me if you have thoughts on this. I want to make sure you understand what is in the packet, what the issues are. I'm going to tell you, when we talk, I'll tell you what I see as the issues, and I'm going to convey what I've heard from others. I'm going to incorporate what staff knows, and I want to make sure everybody understands what's going on before I sit down with Mr. Cavalier and the planner in chief later this week.
Okay. That's all I needed.
Councilmember Richards.
Well, Tim, I can speak for a lot of people. I can tell everybody what our issue is and has been engagement after engagement. Councilman Kibble, Ms. Parisian, and Councilman Kennedy each asked Mr. Cavallari direct, pertinent, factual questions on the things and discrepancies in the ordinances and the diagrams that he submitted, which we've all looked at and been through. And each and every time, he would give us nondescript, vague, roundabout answers, go around the mulberry bush with his answers to our direct questions. We have the responsibility of protecting not only Colonial Acres, but the entire community here, okay? And it's not, and that extends to quality of life for the whole community, okay? Not just ensuring that Mr. Cavallari has a reasonable amount of return on his investment, which in his world of things is 200% over 10 years. That's what he's looking at, okay? But we don't judge our own values in that way, okay? We've got a small town here, and we're trying to preserve it, okay? And I guess it's, when it comes down to the moment of truth, we're going to have to make a very hard decision on this. I'm for development, but we can't stab our own community in the back with something that's in the long term may never be finished. Okay, that's enough. I've said enough.
So do we need a motion to postpone this?
Yes.
Okay. So I'll entertain a motion to postpone this. Do you want to go two meetings?
My recommendation would be to put it out 2 meetings. Mr. Cavallari asked for just 1 meeting. I did tell him, if you put it out 2 and it's ready to come back before that, we can always bring it back.
I think that's the play.
I like the idea of 2 also because then Paul would be able to weigh in on what's
That's a
going
great
on
point,
here too.
I feel like this has been, on whoever's behalf that's trying to rush this through every meeting, and we keep coming back here and it's not ready, and the materials aren't. So I'm going to ask that we make a motion to postpone this for 2 meetings. Councilmember Kurtzwell?
I move to postpone the first reading of ordinance rezoning parcel 21-19-126-002 Thomasville from RM-1 multiple family residential to PD planned development until the first meeting of the month of October.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? Motion passes.
I mean, he'll have a week's worth of experience by the time we get to our meeting.
All right, so we've been doing a little bit of jumping around here on the agenda. At this point, we will jump back down to the budget. Do we have anything on the budget this evening, anybody? Okay. We'll move on to the manager's report. Chief Collins, go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I have, I believe, 5 items, but none too lengthy. The first item, just for public information, Council's already seen a more expanded version of this, but last week I attended a preliminary design meeting regarding paving of Dixboro Road between 8 Mile and 9 Mile Road. The project is planned to begin in 2019 with completion not anticipated until 2020. But we finally will be hopefully seeing some movement on the paving of Dixboro 8 to 9. Any question on that before I move on?
Looking forward to it.
Aren't we all? It'll take some of the traffic pressure off of Pontiac Trail, for sure. My second item is I continued working with Charleston Park residents to facilitate installation of streetlights in that subdivision. It's been many, many years that they've gone without streetlights. I contacted representatives of Sing Development LLC in North Carolina, as well as reps from DT Energy regarding the installation. Singh Development has agreed to proceed with streetlight installation at this time, and I'll be working with DTE Energy regarding specifications for the poles and the light fixtures themselves. So hopefully see some positive movement there and get some light on the streets in the winter nights. Item 3, the police department will be holding sergeant and lieutenant promotional exams on Tuesday, September 18th. Promotional lists are valid for 2 years, and we currently don't have a promotional list for either rank. A company by the name of EMCO out of Troy has been selected as the written test provider. In the interest of full transparency and to avoid any conflict of interest issues, I would like to make council aware that I periodically act as a consultant for EMCO, serving as an assessor and a test author. With that said, I do not author the off-the-shelf type of exam that is being utilized for these promotional exams, and I did not work on those exams. 2 companies are endorsed by the Michigan Association of Chiefs of Police for promotional exams in Michigan. One of those companies is EMCO. The other company is a company called Stannard and Associates. The cost for a sergeant and a lieutenant exam for EMCO is $110 per exam, so that's $110 for each candidate that takes the exam. The Stannard and Associates have the same cost for the sergeant exam, but their lieutenant exams are $135, plus there's a $10 administrative guide added on to each of the 2 test costs. So we are cheaper to go with EMCO, and that is a company that we've used in the past, but I wanted that out there because I do occasionally do work for them.
Councilmember Kivel, go ahead.
I was just curious, was the lack of street lighting in that in Charleston Park, was that a function of they had to meet a percentage of homes built or something threshold, or did it just get overlooked somehow?
To be honest, I think going back to 2006, it's something that fell through the cracks. It should have happened much earlier in the development of that subdivision. Street lighting is not like the sewers and the roads themselves that have to wait for the 80% or the 100% threshold. So as soon as it was called to my attention by the residents, I got on it. I've been on it for about 2 weeks. There's been a lot of progress, and we're going to fix what should have been done a long time ago.
Yeah, thank you.
Number 4, just to update everyone on the Bifano liquor license application. That will be delayed until the September 24th meeting before it comes back. And that's by mutual consent between staff and the applicant to allow the applicant additional time to update their application. They want to be sure that it's complete and accurate before they bring it back to council, and I certainly concur with that. And my last item, again, an informational item. Something came to my attention that was well above my pay grade as either police chief or interim manager. And there was a question as to what kind of white paint do we need on the water tower? The specifications were for a white top with a blue bottom or blue trunk portion. The engineering company then sent to the water department a question saying, well, do you want white or do you want what they call tank white, which has a tinge of blue to it? Now, there may be a perfectly good reason that the engineers were recommending tank white, but again, above my pay grade, so I did the right thing and I went to Cultural Arts, who were kind enough to help us with the graphics and the color scheme to begin with. And during the meeting tonight, I received the verdict from Cultural Arts, and they would prefer that we go with white. I certainly have no reason to do anything other than what Cultural Arts is recommending. So unless council takes issue with Cultural Arts, I will tell the engineers it's white, blue bottom.
They say there's more variations of white than any other color, which seems hard to believe, but
I'm coming to learn that. So white it is.
Yeah. No. Thanks for doing your homework on that, Chief.
And that's the conclusion of my prepared report, but I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Does anyone have anything for Chief tonight?
just one, is there a sense of how they're going with the water tower?
They're going well. I carry, you see the Marine officer carrying what they call the football around with the president, wherever he goes. Wherever I go, in my football pack here is an emergency plan for what we do if we lose water pressure, because the tower has been out of service for a number of days now.
Yeah.
Pressure has been good. Water department has been very carefully monitoring that. Computer systems and alarms are all there. The variable frequency drives that we put into place a number of months ago are functioning as they should. We have not had a pressure loss. We've had very minor pressure fluctuations, and the work is progressing as scheduled, so we're very hopeful for the water tower.
Excellent, thank you.
Councilmember Richards, go ahead.
Chief, I'm not desperately concerned with the intonation of the white, but when Mike Bolvin was here, he submitted a drawing to, or an article to us that had the City of South Lyon written in lettering to be on the face of the both sides of the water tower, okay? And I'm a little concerned about it because we can't read, those of us that, from a distance, that's very difficult to read, okay, from a distance as far as Baker Fountain, because I've studied that, okay, and I know I can't see it, okay? From the distance of Baker Fountain to the water tower, it's got to be bigger lettering than that to be able to read City of South Lyon.
To my understanding, the lettering, much like the color scheme, has been approved by the Cultural Arts Commission, and I believe the lettering is currently as large as it can be and still be on two sides without having the lettering from one side overlap the lettering from the other side.
Okay, whatever, it's a done deal. Thank you.
Yep. Thanks, Chief. At this time, we'll open up for public comment. Please state your name and address. All right, we'll close public comment. On to council comments. Councilmember Kibble, why don't you start us off tonight?
I'm assuming that a number of us had attended the Depot Days. They had a great day for it, and it was really well attended. The community really got a kick out of it. The kids were having a blast. The fire department was well represented with their rig. That's always a crowd pleaser out there. So I just really appreciate the fact that those guys have dedicated themselves to be tending to that whole project over there and having this kind of a day that's just a reflection of some of the history from the area. It's always a good time, and we had the good fortune of having perfect weather for doing that. Kiwanis was out there with dogs and burgers and everything, so everybody was well fed, and the kids riding on the little train
Okay, I might have mixed
going around the park. That's always cute to see, with plenty of their moms and dads enjoying the ride on occasion too. So that was real nice. It's also nice that the theater has been running all these nice first run movies. That's just such an incredible asset to this community, to have such a small place like this that has done such a special job of preserving that building and still having high-end equipment and bringing good movies. I'm really grateful that, being 2 blocks away from downtown, it's a nice little walk into town to go see a flick, and I was really grateful for them. I think that's pretty much all I have. Thanks.
Thanks, Councilmember Kibble. Councilmember Parisian, go ahead.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'll just keep mine short and sweet. As always, please volunteer. Pumpkin Fest is coming up. Mark your calendars for September 28th, 29th, and the 30th. And again, volunteer because they need us. And for them to come to us and ask for help and ask for volunteers, they could use it. So please reach out if you are available or if you know someone who's interested. Let's help our community out. Also, I'd like to just say the same thing about the movie theater. Now that you mentioned it, I absolutely love the fact that they put so much effort and time into the movie theater, and it's beautiful, and it is an asset to our community. Love it. And thanks to the owners who've done such a great job. And lastly, Irwin's Orchard. I know it's not directly into our jurisdiction, but if you get a chance, go visit the orchard. It's always a great time. It's busy, but get some apples, get some donuts, get some cider. Thanks.
Thank you. Councilmember Kennedy.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I'd like to take this opportunity to congratulate Chief Vogel and the Southland Fire Department for celebrating 125 years of service to this city. They don't often get the recognition that they truly deserve, and I'd just like to make that evident today, that they do a great job.
He doesn't look anywhere near that old.
No, he's well for his age. The other thing is, I'd like to thank the residents from the community that helped support the Salem South Lyon District Library and their used book sale that provided over $2,300 to the library so they can purchase additional materials for that institution. So my thanks to them, and that's everything I have.
Thank you. Councilmember Richards?
Yes, thank you, Mr. Mayor. I got a few little items here. I want to go as fast as I can, but not confuse the audience, okay? Just a little bit of a cap over on Depot Day this past Saturday. Great success, can't say enough. 2 years ago, when the Historical Society agreed to abandon Heritage Day, we decided to put more effort into Depot Day and in September, and we formed a standing committee, okay, to do the research, and that's how it goes at this time. And then it transfers to Larry and Linda, the officers of Commission and Society, to implement what the committee sets up for the whole program with the vendors and everything. When we do our final accounting, okay, if we are close to no more than $1,000 short on revenue as opposed to our expenses, we consider it a great victory, okay, as has been the case a number of other years. If we can be right around that neighborhood. Anyway, just to give you an idea of what goes on there. Okay, number two, at our last Historical Commission meeting last week, I asked some questions, and they've received a quotation for repairing our sidewalks and approaches at Dorothy Street in the amount of $2,000. I'm not going to mention the contractor, but he's well vested with the community. Okay. And if council gives me the green light or okay, I'm going to recommend back to the commission that they accept it. Okay. Over the past 2 or 3 years, that has deteriorated terrifically. Okay, remember that rock that's in the museum area, that weighed 9,000 plus pounds when we brought it in there. And that is a contributing factor to the deterioration of the sidewalk and the approaches and such. Anyway, I believe it'd be close to within our budget, but I think it would need city council approval. So I'm just letting you know, okay, I'd like to recommend it to them. Bob got it right on the seal coating. I don't need to say anything. The post office, I mentioned that the last meeting. It was a couple meetings ago. I checked back with them today, okay? The paving of their parking lot, which is similar in size, maybe 1,000 feet different, to our own city parking lot in square footage. They had no communication on what it actually cost. The bidding and awarding of a bid for the whole thing is done through the maintenance department of the Detroit offices, totally out of the hands of local management in the post office here in this town. And they had no clue as to what it was or how to find that information out. Sorry, I can't pass that on to you because our parking lot's pretty similar. Okay, number 5 here, or number 4. Complications from the back blockage at 390 Lafayette Street from the Heineman water overflow and the discharge into our storm drains. That was cleaned out this past week. There was some blockage, so when they surveyed the succeeding drains down the way, it plugged up, okay? So this past week, they've been working on cleaning them out, and they did a wonderful job. And not one last item. As I am to understand it from reading the legal accounts from Tim's company, okay, the city of South Lyon has acquired some new parkland. And it's up on 11 Mile up there, I believe. That I don't recall the name of the sub right this minute, okay? But I was wondering if that land is going to be dedicated eventually to Parks and Recs or not. It's donated by the developer to the city of South Lyon. I can't remember the name of that subdivision. It's up on 11 Mile.
Mr. Mayor?
Chief
If I
Collins,
could,
go ahead.
That would be the park within the Carriage Trace subdivision.
Carriage Trace, that's it, okay? I'm just, what I've read in the statements and bills from Johnson Rosati, we've accumulated or gotten ourselves a new park.
Mr. Mayor?
Chief Collins, go ahead.
That property was actually quit-claimed and accepted a number of years ago, and we simply, with city attorney's able assistance, confirmed that information. And that related to some maintenance and repair issues on the bridges in that park.
Thank you for that clarification.
Thank you.
Councilmember Richards, is that all?
Yeah, that's all. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Councilmember Walton, go ahead.
All right, thank you. I have several things tonight. I'm sorry, I'm probably going to talk way more than I ever have, but I do want to congratulate the South Lyon Fire Department on their 125 years. That's wonderful. Thank you very much for being here. I want to say that I attended the Labor Day walk in I can't even speak, McCaddy Park. It was a great event. It's been several years that they've been doing it, and it's really nice, all the volunteers that come out and get that organized and get that going. I want to give a special thank you to the Cultural Arts Commission for their extra help on the water tower. It sounds like you guys have been pretty busy this past week with extra phone calls. Couple other things here. The Witches Hat Run and the 27th annual Witches Hat Run was held on Saturday and Sunday. Both the South Lyon High School and South Lyon East boys cross country teams were present and working with it. Thank you to the band, South Lyon High School band, who was out there practicing on the track and allowed us to have us start on the track. They played the national anthem for us. And of course, all the volunteers that made it happen, and the South Lyon Police Department for being there and just making sure the traffic was at bay with all the extra runners out on the streets. So that was much appreciated. It was a great event. Depot Days was wonderful. Again, in the heart of our city, the Historical Society just did a fantastic job. And all the wonderful volunteers that were out there that making that event happen, thank you very much. I attended it for several hours, seems like everybody else did. I also took the opportunity to go over to Alexander's and have a quick lunch, and that was very enjoyable. So, you know, getting out and enjoying our town is always something I really like. The library is now open on Sundays for extra homework help for those kids that are struggling, or these adults who are back in school and struggling. Wonderful opportunity. I took advantage of them this past Sunday. So, and then the last thing I want to bring up is that while I was out attending these events, I was talking to several residents, and there's a couple things that they're asking for. The areas around McCaddy Park, the Dorothy and McMunn Streets, they'd like to see some better signage regarding bus stops, parks in the area, foot traffic in the area. They're seeing an influx of traffic coming down those roads now that school's back in session and people are trying to avoid the main thoroughfare. People don't stop the stop signs, they're speeding through there. Their concern is for the students, but also for the adults, just everybody, all the residents that are walking through there. They're pretty concerned about the extra traffic and they'd like to see some better signage, a little bit more, I guess, police presence. So just to have that a little heads up and see if we can do something there. And again, that parking lot that I brought up earlier in the evening at Dorothy and McMunn continues to be a very big point on several residents. You know, we're telling people to park there, but it's a danger zone. You can't drive through there without hitting a pothole. People telling me they're afraid cars are going to get sunk in, so they just don't use it. But it is part of our city, and it is considered city parking, and we need to take care of it. So that's all I have tonight. Everyone, have a great night. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilmember Welton. Councilmember Kurtzwell?
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Like most of the individuals on City Council, I would like to thank all the volunteers with respect to Depot Day. Particularly, I'd like to thank the Four Seasons Garden Club. They're a staple, they're becoming a staple at Depot Day, and just did a fabulous job. The kids absolutely loved their particular project that they provided. And again, this is just a great activity to have in the downtown area, and want to thank all the volunteers. Additionally, I was at the movie theater last night and saw Crazy Rich Asians. I have to tell you, I was with friends, and you know, you can make a whole evening out of this. You can go to Lake Street Tavern, which is what we did. We went, we had, you know, just a nice light dinner, went across the street, saw a great movie. I have to tell you, it was just the best time. It was a great evening. So please, you know, take the time to go to the theater and enjoy everything, including a nice light dinner over at Lake Street Tavern. Additionally, a lot of people over the weekend, when I was out, asked me about a voting issue. So what I did was I pulled up the opinion that came out on Wednesday. And for those of you that are voting in the November general election, you may not be able to vote straight ticket anymore. So I want to make sure that voters are aware that there has been a change in that particular voting technique. As most of you know, Michigan enacted Public Act 268, which eliminated Michigan straight ticket voting. It was challenged in 2016. In August of 2018, the Federal District Court in Detroit ruled and enjoined the state or prevented the state from enforcing the elimination of straight ticket voting. The Secretary of State then took that to the Sixth Circuit, and last Wednesday, September 5th, the opinion came out, and they are now permitted to strike straight ticket voting on your ballot. So if you're used to straight ticket voting, I just want to let you know that there's been a change in the law, but who knows? This could be a ping pong and go back and forth. So who knows what your ballot will really look like when November comes around. So just wanted to get that out. Next, I wanted to thank all the soccer moms who were out this weekend collecting bottles and cans for their sons and daughters for their particular fundraisers. Please, everyone, if you can, clean out your garage and provide bottles and cans for these young adults. Maybe to you and me, you know, you take your bottles back, and what are you going to get? You're going to get a pizza and a couple bottles of pop. You know, I personally don't need the extra pounds. So I think maybe if 200 people would donate their bottles and cans, we can add our resources together and give these young sports enthusiasts some opportunities that maybe they would not already have. So thank you to the soccer moms I met this weekend. I'm going to go out and encourage everyone to please donate when you can with bottles and cans for these young athletes in our city. Next, Denise Murray, I have to apologize. I could not find your phone number from last week, and she had the question on the protected plants over in Thomasville. And I did my research, and in fact made many phone calls throughout the state of Michigan. And Michigan does have 4 protected trilliums, painted trillium, prairie trillium, snow trillium, and toad shade trillium. Whether or not the Thomasville project has these protected trilliums, I do not know. I have not received permission from the owner to trespass on his property to check, but I do want to at least get back with Denise, at least maybe through the video, that I did do the research on the plants, and maybe someone at Colonial Acres, if you want to get hold of me tonight, I can give you the information that I had. The places that I spoke to clearly were absolutely wonderful to deal with and gave me great information. Next, I do want to bring to everyone's attention just a great pamphlet that we get every year, every season actually. It's from the Salem South Lyon District Library. This has their fall events. If you are not reading this, you need to read it. It has great events that are coming up at the library for October, even November. A favorite event here, which I think is kind of important, I want to bring up, is that veterans that have served in our country will have an opportunity to create a wall of honor for public display at the library. You can go to this pamphlet for further details, but please, if you know a veteran, ask them to please bring a picture to the library and get it on the wall of honor. Next, John Hogan. Want to make sure everybody knows about his financial seminar starting on September 25th at 6:30 at the Salem South Lyon Library. His first topic is credit scores. John told me this, and I did not mention this. I want to mention it this time. John is a notary public, so if you have anything that you need notarized, come to the meeting early, come to the seminar early, and he will notarize. John is a great local banker. He's been serving our community for a long time. He's an assistant vice president over at Comerica. So thank you, John, for everything you do. Also, I just want to remind everybody to please take time tomorrow to spend a few moments in silence remembering those who untimely died in the terror events of 9/11. Additionally, let's be thankful for the freedoms that we have as a result of our veterans and their services to our country, and to all the first responders, whether they were in New York or first responders that are here living with us in our wonderful community of South Lyon. So thank you, everyone, for allowing us into your homes this evening. Take care and have a wonderful week.
Thank you, Councilmember
Thank you.
Kurtzwell. I just have a couple brief things. Judy over at City Hall forwarded this very nice email to me. A resident came in last week and to commend the DPW on the maintenance of the rail trail. He went on to say that the trail was one of the top reasons that he and his wife decided to move here, as they use that trail for training purposes, and he wanted someone to be aware of how much they appreciate all the work and maintenance that is done on that. They plow that in the winter and stuff too. So, I mean, we all probably take it a lot for granted. So thank you to whoever this individual was passing that along. We appreciate all the hard work of our DPW crew. Saturday, there's an event at South Lyon High School. It is incredible. It is a special day for the kids in the community that aren't able to play football because of their disability or special needs, and the band is out there, the cheerleaders are out there, and we give them the full experience of what it's like to run in and score a touchdown and practice with the football team. It's called Victory Day. That starts at 10:30. If you're in town and you haven't experienced it, I would highly encourage you guys to come over and check it out, because it is it's just a joy to be a part of. I would also like to piggyback on Councilmember Kurtzwell's mentioning of September 11th today. I would encourage us all to take a moment to reflect on that day from 17 years ago, for sure. So with that, we'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Move to adjourn?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Thank you.
Great meeting,
Good night, all.
Dan. Great meeting.
No, that's a, yeah.
Sounds good to me.